The word Atma Pragyaptaye indicates that the Lord descends for the benefit of the human race to give transcendental knowledge. Material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in the Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one's knowledge expands. On the platform of passion, there is no knowledge, for passion is simply an impetus to enjoy material benefits. On the platform of ignorance, there is no knowledge and no enjoyment, but simply life almost like that of animals. The Vedas are meant to elevate one from the mode of ignorance to the platform of goodness. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he is able to understand knowledge of the self or transcendental knowledge. This knowledge cannot be appreciated by any ordinary man. Therefore, since a disciplic succession is required, this knowledge is expounded either by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself or by his bona fide devotee. Shaunaka Muni also states here that Kapila, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, took birth or appeared simply to appreciate and disseminate transcendental knowledge, simply to understand that one is not matter but spirit soul, aham brahmasmi, I am by nature Brahman, is not sufficient knowledge for understanding the self and his activities. One must be situated in the activities of Brahman. Knowledge of those activities is explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Such transcendental knowledge can be appreciated in human society, but not in animal society, as clearly indicated here by the word Nrinam for the human beings. Human beings are meant for regulated life. By nature there is regulation in animal life also, but that is not like the regulative life as described in the scriptures or by the authorities. Human life is regulated life, not animal life. In regulated life only can one understand transcendental knowledge. Om Ganatmirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shanakuvacha Kapilas Tattva Sankyata Bhagavan Atmamaya Jatasvayam Ajasakshat Atma Pragyaptaye Nrinam. Sri Shaunaka said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Hare Krishna. So the verse is about transcendental knowledge given by Lord Kapila Dev. And he speaks this to his mother Devahuti after his father Kardama Muni left. And in the final sentence of the purport, Prabhupada says, in regulated life only can one understand transcendental knowledge. So this indicates the purpose of human life, a very important subject matter, the purpose of human life, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, to inquire about spirit, inquire about transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada says, material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in the Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one's knowledge expands. So we're meant to come to the platform of sattva, to cultivate sattvic qualities and sattvic habits in all areas of life, and at the same time, not to regard sattva as the ultimate goal. Rather, sattva guna, they might say that's the best platform to receive, to prepare ourselves to receive transcendental knowledge. We don't want to fall into a sattvic trap. We don't want to forget. We want to remember that dukkhalayam shashvatam, the material world is intrinsically, it's a temporary place full of miseries. And in that sense, sattva can be more dangerous than the other modes, because relatively speaking, it can seem pretty pleasant. Queen Kunti prays, Janmeshwarya Shruta Shubir, Edamana Manapumana, Nairahatnya Vidatunvai, Tvama Kinchana Gotra. That one who has different material, things are going pretty good in terms of good looks or education or wealth or good birth, like that. So for such a person, it can be difficult to become materially exhausted. In our right mind, in our clear mind, we're materially exhausted. That Janma Mrityu Jaravyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. So one with clear spiritual intelligence means we get this is an inherently miserable place. We're not meant to be here any more than a fish is meant to be out of water. Even if we take a fish out of water and let's say we give it a really nice house, or we give it a prestigious job, we give it a really attractive spouse, fish. What will the fish do? The fish will flop and die, because it's just not meant to be in water. It's not meant to be out of water. So birth, death, old age, and disease. This is defined as this is knowledge. In the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna defines the process of knowledge in 19 or 20 elements. First element being humility, also nimanam moha, jitasanga dosha, pridelessness, humility. So humility, to understand Kayami Jaritapachaya, Keniyamaya Jaritapachaya. Sanatan Goswami approaches Lord Chaitanya, and just like Sanatan Goswami, he was really successful in material life in all ways. Okay, but he said, I don't even know who people think I'm great. People think I really have it together. But I don't even know who I am. And I'm suffering. I'm suffering from my mind. I'm suffering from my body. I'm suffering. And I don't know why I'm suffering. And I don't even know who I am. People think I have it together. So that's humility. That's humility. To acknowledge, on my own, I'm no match for the material energy. I'm drowning in the ocean of material existence. I'm burning in the blazing fire of material existence. Sam saradava nalalita loka chanaya karunya ganaganatvam. So Prabhupada talks about the parampara here. The parampara. So we surrender to the spiritual master, to Srila Prabhupada. And like a rain cloud, he extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. And we qualify ourselves to receive transcendental knowledge through surrender, through service. So transcendental knowledge. There's different. So actually, what knowledge is will be defined according to our goal of knowledge. If our goal is liberation from Janma Mrityu Jaravyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam, if our goal is liberation, then we'll accept the transcendental knowledge that comes through Bhagavad Gita, transcendent like that, the transcendental knowledge that comes from every word in Prabhupada's books. So the elements of knowledge described in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that's for those whose goal is liberation, not some sort of inactive liberation, as Prabhupada beautifully says here. Simply to understand that one is not matter but spirit soul, I am by nature Brahman, is not sufficient knowledge for understanding the self and his activities. One must be situated in the activities of Brahman. Right? Just like Prabhupada gives the example, if someone is sick, someone is convalescing, so their activities are limited, right? They can't run and jump and work hard and play and, eat with gusto. No. So is it that when they get cured, when they're completely ill, then they just stay in bed and do nothing? No. When they're completely cured, then they can engage in their full activity. So similarly, spiritually, we're sick. That takes humility. I'm sick. Spiritually, we're in a convalescing condition. And if we don't even know it, we're not going to take the proper diet, prasadam, and then take the medicine, nivrita tarshya upagiyamana, chanting Hare Krishna. So when we come to spiritual health, then we engage in our true activity, not that we do nothing. So if one's goal is to increase control of material energy, as far as Krishna describes in the 16th chapter Bhagavad Gita, Sharoham Hambogi Siddhoham Balavan Sukhi. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I am perfect, powerful, and happy. So if one's goal is to increase that mentality, that illusory mentality, I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer, well, then there will be different constituents that one will regard as knowledge, different data and information that one might learn in university courses about the periodic table or about history or about what's happening on Wall Street or whatever. Okay. So according to one's goal, that will determine what regards as knowledge. If one's goal is to enhance eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, then knowledge will be knowledge, what Bhagavad Gita describes as knowledge in the mode of ignorance. Knowledge that does not rise beyond the so-called knowledge of animals. So we're encouraged to cultivate sattva. Of course, our goal is transcendent. Sattva can be compared like to an airport. So if I want to go to New York City, the best place from which to get there is the Bangalore airport. Right? In this metaphor, New York City is transcendent. It's Vaikuntha. You just need to kind of bear with me on this one. So the best place to get there is the Bangalore airport. But let's say we're at the Bangalore airport and we're lounging at the Bangalore airport, and maybe there's some nice music playing, or maybe we're having some nice prasad there, whatever. And then let's say they announce the flight to New York, and we're just so comfortable at the airport we don't get on the flight. So we didn't get on the airplane back to Godhead. So in a sense, we're no closer to New York than we were at our home in Bangalore. If we're at the airport. So the airport is the best launch pad to get to New York. But if we get to sattva, of course, on the way here, Bhakta Patrick and I, we were at the Newark airport, and it turned out not to be the best place to get to India. But that's another principle. That's the principle that this material world is a temporary place full of misery. It was a whole material adventure, delays for 2 days, but I digress. So we want to cultivate sattva while realizing that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is that sattva is the best consciousness by which, through which we can receive divya gyan and act to get to transcendence and transcendental devotional service. This is the secure platform of liberation. Yene ravindaksha vimukti maninastva astabhavada vishuddha buddhayo. Without that, then we won't have the higher taste, even if we have some sense of sattva, but some sense of spiritual life. But without the param drishta nivartate, the higher taste, then we're likely to fall back down to material activities. So this transcendental knowledge, this is received by personalities like the personality of Godhead Kapila Dev. It's received through the pure devotee, through our current link to the parampara. This is what defines who's the current link to the parampara. From whom are we getting the most transcendental knowledge? We sing every morning, Divya Gan Ride Prakashita. We sing to Srila Prabhupada. Obviously, spiritual knowledge is not dependent on anything material. By definition, spiritual is not dependent on anything material. So receiving spiritual transcendental knowledge is not dependent on geography, it's not dependent on physical presence, it's not dependent on a performance of an official initiation ceremony. It's not even, if we look at our parampara and the dissension of transcendental knowledge, it's not dependent on presence, on physical presence on the same planet at the same time. So transcendental knowledge, it's we receive it through pleasing Srila Prabhupada, through pleasing our spiritual master, just like Krishna gives Divya Gyan. He gives transcendental knowledge to Arjuna. Why does he choose Arjuna? Right? Why didn't he choose, well, like Arjuna was a warrior. Why didn't he choose an intellectual? I mean, Arjuna was knew all the Vedas. He was realized in all the Vedas, but he was known as a warrior. Bhaktosi me sakachasi rahasyam yutarutamam. Because Krishna says to Arjuna, because you're my devotee and you're my friend. Just like in this world, if we want to know another human being, how do we know another human being? Well, okay, I could know, let's say by studying you with some detached analysis. Maybe I can understand something about you by observing your habits. But if I want to get to know you intimately, what's the process? The process is I gain your love and trust. I serve you. I show deep interest in you. I show empathy. I endeavor to create a sacred space in our relationship, a sacred space for giving and receiving affection. Guya makiti prichati. Then you choose to reveal yourself more and more deeply, at deeper levels of honesty and authenticity. Yeah, and that's a crucial element of Vaishnava life, right? To create sacred space in our relationship and to know the art and the science of that Sangha. It's not like there's Vaishnava etiquette. Vaishnava etiquette, it's not meant to be like it's not meant to be a stifling barrier between rich, fulfilling, intimate relations. Vaishnava etiquette is supposed to enhance the space of Guya Makiti Prichati. So this propensity that naturally we reveal ourselves more and more fully to the extent that we get that someone loves us and someone cares about us and someone understands us. Well, that propensity is there because it's there in our source. It's there in Krishna. That's why Krishna revealed himself to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Right? He reveals himself to his devotees. Bhaktosi me sakachati rahasyam yetaduttaman. And so, how do we know? How to please Krishna? How can we be empathic to Krishna? How can we endeavor to understand? Well, that's the system. Yes, Yes, yasya prasada, bhagavat prasada, yasya prasada, nagati kutopi. So, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he knows Krishna. He's like Arjuna. He's an intimate friend of Krishna. So he knows how to please Krishna. We please Srila Prabhupada. We please Krishna. And in a sense, we have so many guides. We might have we have so many teachers, so many people who inspire us. In a sense, they're all our gurus. In a sense, but then yasya prasada bhagavat prasada yasya prasada nagati kutopi. Who's the guru? The guru in the singular, without whose grace we would make no advancement in spiritual life. That's Srila Prabhupada. That's Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada knows Krishna. He knows how to guide us to please Krishna. And so by learning, by getting to know Srila Prabhupada through his books, through following his instructions, and through following his program, by beginning to know Srila Prabhupada, we please Srila Prabhupada, and then we naturally, without separate endeavor, please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Hare Krishna. Shaunaka Uvacha Kapilas Tattva Sankyata Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Jatasvayam Aja Sakshad Atma Pragyaptaye Nvinam. Sri Shaunaka said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening. If I understand the timing correctly, we have a few minutes for questions or comments. If anyone has any questions or comments. Prabhu, over there, yeah. It's not working. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah.
So, in such situations, how can we enhance the relationship with other Vaishnavas? From our side, what we need to do so that the relationship with each other enhances?
Yes.
How do we put our efforts in this direction? Like, we don't attend some Vaishnavas, we always be careful. Increasing, like, being conscious of our Vaishnava qualities, improve them.
To improve our Vaishnava qualities, what I heard you say, Prabhu, what I heard you ask is that, like, often, even in Vaishnava relationships, we might express, but there's lack of understanding, there's miscommunication, could be communication breakdown. Yes, we spoke about Guyamakiti Prichati, essential principles of exchanging affection between Vaishnavas. And as I said, because I've been, the past 8 days, I've been conducting some seminars here. Actually, the seminars, well, at least my intention, my endeavor in the seminars, I pretty much all 8 days of the seminars were to address that question. And, you know, because I've been teaching such seminars, well, in some ways for 35 years, but in Vaishnava communities for, a little over 20 years. Although this is my first time in Bangalore, and I'm deeply honored to be here and fully enthused by your association. So I've often heard in Vaishnava communities, Guyamakiti Prichati, to reveal our mind confidentially. They'll go, Dear Govinda Das, the devotee community is the last place in the world where I would want to reveal my mind confidentially. So, I mean, it's not pretty to say, and I'm not saying that that's the case here. I've been very inspired by the quality of your Vaishnava Sangha here, but I have seen that in different devotee communities. So humility can take the form of, okay, more important than you understanding what I have to say, more important than that is me understanding what you're saying. So, if we can endeavor to cultivate a consciousness where more important is, hey Prabhu, you understand what I'm saying. More important than that, we can call a humble consciousness of, I'm committed to understand what you're saying and why you're saying it and your intention. And after you feel fully understood by me, if you're interested, I have some things I'd like to express. So what I found is that to the extent that I'm effective in cultivating that mentality, then my relationship with those who identify as devotees of Krishna and those who don't yet identify that way, my relationships become sweeter to the extent that I'm able to cultivate that consciousness. And it's completely Vaishnava. There's a letter from Srila Prabhupada to Balavanta Das December 13th, 1972. And he writes to Balavant, essentially he writes, because Balavanta was preaching to intellectuals, and he writes to Balavanta, he says, if we want to attract intelligent people, we need to be really good listeners. He says, now there's a difference between listening, there's a difference between understanding and agreeing. It doesn't mean if we hear, and Prabhupada in that letter to Balavanta, he cites Lord Chaitanya. He says Lord Chaitanya listened in silence. He says 3 days in the letter. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a pastime where it's like 7 days. He listens to word jugglery, nonsense, mayava. Lord Chaitanya listened for 7 days. He made it important to hear Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Prabhupada writes to Balavanta. He writes to Balavanta, look, if we want to attract intelligent people, we need to really be expert in understanding their other's point of view and appreciating and respecting their point of view. Now, it's not that after Lord Chaitanya heard from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was just like, oh, okay, yeah, so it's all Maya, or, whatever. No, then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after feeling deeply listened to, then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was like, well, okay, what do you think? There's a common saying, people don't care what you know till they know that you care. So a powerful way to show that we care is to be dedicated to deep understanding of the other person or the other group. And then that in itself is auspicious, and that increases the possibility that the others will be open to what we have to say. Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Prabhu, you mentioned that Sattva Guna is the best way to transcend the modes.
Yeah.
But in Kali Yuga, generally, we are predominantly in Rajoguna and Tamoguna.
Yeah.
Is it that we have to strive to come to Sattva Guna, or we have to dovetail Rajoguna or whichever Guna we are in, so as to transcend the modes? Which one of them is the best?
Thank you for your question, Prabhu. And the answer, according to my understanding from Prabhupada's teachings and my experience, is both. Both. From wherever we're at, it's not like, well, I can't do devotional service till I cultivate sattva, and that might take like 2 million lifetimes, so no. From wherever we're at, whatever combination of lower modes, let's give it to Krishna, let's endeavor to chant Hare Krishna, and just give ourselves to transcendence from wherever we're at. That's the Pantratriki system that comes from Narada Muni and that we're getting from Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada. It's not the traditional Vaidika system, work our way up through the ashrams like that. So from wherever we're at, let's just engage in the transcendental process. The Pantratriki system. If there's some spark of sincerity, we fan it like Narada Muni did with Mrigarari the hunter. He didn't gradually endeavor to, he just gave him the transcendental process. At the same time, it's not separate from our process. Our process of bhakti includes endeavoring to cultivate sattvic qualities. It's not separate from our process of bhakti. So just like we went through some of us went through some seminar. So part of our process of bhakti, let's endeavor to cultivate sattvic communication habits. Let's endeavor to cultivate sattvic habits of cleanliness. That's not separate from our transcendental process of bhakti. It's an integral aspect of it. Just like Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Janiya Ishivaya Gyanam Charita Hitukam. By performing devotional service to Vasudeva Krishna, one immediately attains causeless knowledge and detachment. So one can say, well, I'll just do devotional service. I don't need to study, because knowledge comes automatically. Well, that's true, that knowledge comes automatically, and part of our process of bhakti yoga is to carefully study Prabhupada's books and apply our intelligence to the philosophy. Similarly, an aspect of our process is to consciously cultivate sattvic communication, sattvic habits around eating, sleeping, like that. And if we neglect that, then in the name of transcendence, we might actually be mired in ignorance. We might confuse transcendence with ignorance. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Haribol.
When it comes to relationship, in the spiritual relationship is unconditional and pure relationship.
Yes.
Here in the material world, our relationship would be impure and conditional relationship.
Yeah.
So now we need to switch over from conditional and impure relationship to pure and unconditional relationship.
Yeah.
In this process of switching over, is it that we should make our relationship zero and completely depend on the Lord and Srila Prabhupada, then slowly move towards unconditional and pure relationship? Or should we keep relationship with Vaishnavas even though it is unconditional and impure, and keep doing devotional service and it gets switched over?
I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding your question.
Okay. I'm just asking.
You say to make our relationship zero.
There is one opinion that in spiritual life, you should not be looking for any relationship and some kind of love, care. We should be depend on the Lord, depend on spiritual master, and whatever situation we may be in, we should be doing our devotional service.
Yes, well, sure. We want our spiritual nourishment to be only dependent on Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, on Srila Prabhupada. And like Srila Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, that relationships in this world, they're natural places for exchange of affection. So no, these relationships, these can be training grounds for our relationship, like a training ground for a relationship with Krishna. And my understanding is Vaishnav relations were meant to acknowledge where we have shortcomings, where I have material motivations, where I'm not unconditional. Notice that, not ignore it, not pretend it's not there, and to endeavor more and more each day of our life in our Vaishnav relations, in our family relations, to make them true Vaishnav relations, to take our relationships and more, how can I put self-realization, jivasya tattva jigyasa, how can I put self-realization in the center of this relationship? How can I more and more purely serve this person by supporting this person, whether it's someone else in the temple, whether it's my mom or dad, whether it's a child or a spouse, whether it's the person working at the post office. How can I support this person out of true compassion in their self-realization and ultimately their connection with Super Soul and divine consciousness? How can I use my relationships for that? And in that becomes a crucible to see where I have other motivations in relationship, and that's great. Because the other motivations come to the surface, I get to pull that weed, and then tomorrow I'm more pure in actually relating with the highest purpose of life in mind. So relations with other people, whether they identify themselves as Vaishnavas or not, they are opportunities for our purification. They should not be neglected. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
When we preach the neophytes,
yes.
Somebody is new to Krishna consciousness, we preach them that Dukkalayam Ashashvatam. Very frequently. So they come to Krishna consciousness and they take up to KC and they become little matured in devotional service, KC. And later the same principle may not be very impetus for them to further advance.
Yes.
So next, what should we preach them? Like after coming to certain level, so how should we inspire them? Like in the beginning, this is very inspiring. You say Dukkalayam, easily they can catch and
Yes.
But over the period of time, they're a little matured in Krishna consciousness. So further, what we can, how should we preach them? What will be the more impetus for them?
I'm not sure if I caught everything there, but from what I heard you say, like when someone's just coming to Krishna consciousness, we focus on one point, and the principle, the principle is time, circumstance, and person. There's a letter from Srila Prabhupada in the early 70s, And he writes to his disciple, the highest development of your Krishna consciousness, this is paraphrasing, he said, the highest development of your Krishna consciousness will be when you're able to present the truth, to present these universal principles of Krishna consciousness to anyone and everyone, such that they'll respond positively. So that we're not just, this is just how I preach, no matter, but that we're able, and that's the empathy principle, that we understand where someone's at. Maybe they're absorbed in pranamoya or anamoya challenges in life. So we connect with them where they're at, and we're able to communicate the eternal principles of Bhagavad Gita such that they'll resonate with it and they'll be inspired and encouraged. That's something that came to me from what I understood from your question. Now my understanding it's about 9:15. Does it mean it's time to close? Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna, Namo Prabhupada.